Well, indeed, thank you for staying with us here on KTN Business Today. My name is Peter Wakaba, and on this side of the show, we want to talk matters LAPSSET. Of course, that is the Lamu Port and the whole, range of associated projects that have to do with the northern corridor towards, South Sudan and Ethiopia. It, of course, is a huge project and encapsulates a large amount of spending, indeed, a large amount of transformation of the country in that area itself to be able to serve the people better and, of course, open up the hinterland and to be able to, bring us up to speed on what exactly has been happening on that front. As indicated earlier, Sylvester Kasuku, he is the CEO and Director General of the Development Project itself. Karibu sana. Now, first off, for most people, they really wouldn't be able to conceptualize what exactly the LAPSSET is all about, and indeed, what has happened so far. We have heard about Vision 2030, but what exactly is the LAPSSET, for those who don't know, of course?
Right. Thank you very much, Wakaba. The LAPSSET is what we call the Lamu Port, South Sudan, Ethiopia Transport Corridor.
Yes.
The corridor encompasses 7 key infrastructure components. Mm-hmm. That is the highways,
yes, the
railways, the pipelines. In terms of pipelines, we have crude oil pipeline and we also have product oil pipeline.
Yes.
Crude oil pipeline takes oil to Lamu, mm-hmm, and the product oil pipeline takes refined oil from Lamu to Ethiopia.
Yes, and just to interrupt you right there, maybe I'll ask you to look at me, is to say that the conceptualization of this project started way back, I think, in the early 2000s, that sort of
yes,
thing, but we really saw you start to get on the ground in around 2012. What has the journey been so far?
The journey has been quite a successful journey, mm-hmm, of which we have managed to undertake key studies,
yes,
beginning with the initial conceptual studies, mm-hmm, which included feasibility studies, designs,
yes,
of all the project components, from roads, railways, ports, airports, resort cities, refineries, mm-hmm, among others.
Yes.
And we've also managed to undertake detailed engineering design,
yes,
for the roads, the port part that we are building today, and other feasibility studies for the other components. And then beyond the studies that we have undertaken, mm-hmm, we have commenced the construction of Lamu Port, the first 3 terminals, that is, and currently we are at 20% progress. Mm-hmm. We've also completed construction of the Isiolo, Marsabit to Moyale road, mm-hmm, which is now usable. Mm-hmm. You can now go to Addis Ababa
yes,
by road.
On tarmac.
On tarmac. Mm-hmm. Very beautiful. 500 kilometers without a pothole.
Impressive.
We've also commenced construction for Lamu Garsen Road. We've also commenced construction for Lokicha to the border with South Sudan. Mm-hmm. And we are soon commencing construction for Lamu Garissa Isiolo, mm-hmm, which is over 500 kilometers.
Yes.
In that same line, we've also more or less completed the construction of Isiolo Airport, and we've also completed upgrading of Lamu Airport, yes, at Manda.
Yes.
With all this done, we've therefore more or less gotten onto the path of opening the northern part of Kenya, creating a second transport corridor, at the same time priming Kenya as a key investment destination, mm-hmm, within East Africa and within Africa.
Mm-hmm. If you look at the projects that were done at the turn of the last century or even before,
right,
like the old railway, some of the roads like Mombasa to Nairobi and beyond to the western parts of Kenya, mm-hmm, and you trace that on a map, a lot of the development in the country is mostly clustered around those corridors.
Right.
So what is the importance of opening up the areas that we're opening up today? What exactly do we hope to achieve? Do we hope to mirror a situation like that?
What we like to say is that, as you've rightly said,
yes,
we've been so far concentrating on developing just about 30% of Kenya's land space.
Yes.
That is located along the corridor from Mombasa and Nairobi to the borders with Uganda and Tanzania. Mm-hmm. And beyond that,
yes,
we've largely left northern Kenya, which is about 70% of the country's land space, mm-hmm, unopened. It has been quite a closed area. No investment opportunities really opened up.
Yes.
So by opening up this second transport corridor,
yes,
plus other networks that go to Wajir and Mandera, mm-hmm, we are basically opening up that entire northern part of Kenya, thereby opening up what I can say to be 200% more investment space, living space, development space, revenue space, all counted together. And that is quite significant if we are really looking at expanding our GDP.
Yes.
And we've many a times talked about, let's say, like debt is to the ratio of our GDP is very high. It is because maybe our GDP is mainly supported from the northern corridor, Mombasa, Nairobi, to the borders. By opening up that 200% extra space, then we are actually more than doubling our capacity to be able to expand the GDP and create greater investment opportunities and also exploit our potentials that are found within the northern part of Kenya.
There are those who say that we are paying through the nose for this, that we might not be able to literally be able to pay back this money. Are you confident that these projects will have the sort of impact that you're saying? Do we foresee that we will be able to have an adequate knock-on effect across that economy?
Absolutely. There'll be enormous backward and forward linkages arising as benefits. And what I can say for sure is that infrastructure projects, irrespective of how much they cost, are quite beneficial to the economy. Right from the onset, from the studies you engage in economic development, into the construction stage, you are basically engaging a lot of other resources within the economy and creating the flows that are needed to make the economy more liquid. At the same time, you are building capacity of people, of institutions, and all the productive sectors of the economy. And at the end of the day, when you've already built them, then the infrastructure is not just going to be there unto its own self. The infrastructure is actually a big enabler of the economy. The roads allow goods and people to move up and down. It enables us to be able to cut transportation costs, which sometimes actually increase prices of goods. It also enables us to open up more investments, which create more employment, which open up other sectors of the economy, for example, agriculture, industrialization, among many others. So at the end of the day, all these infrastructures are going to pay for the economy.
There are those who also contend that we are paying a hefty price in terms of our environment. For example, in Lamu, we have been told that the port project is first going to create a situation where we are polluting the environment, damaging fisheries. We have been told that we are destroying cultural artifacts, destroying the culture itself. How do we balance conservation of the environment, preservation of culture, vis-a-vis development, which is exactly what we want?
Thank you very much. That's a very important question. I would like to state that the government, being the environmental watchdog, through the institutions created to take care of that, cannot be the one that will damage the environment. And to be very practical on this, concerning LAPSET, we have undertaken an extensive what we call SEA study, a strategic environmental assessment, that is looking at the entire global environmental impacts that will arise from all these projects. From that, we have come up with the policies of environmental management and make good policies to make sure that, irrespective of what we develop, we, at the end of the day, must maintain good environmental quality. Beyond that, we've also made sure that at every sub-project level, we are having detailed environmental and social impact assessments undertaken. And Kenya's environmental watchdog, NEMA, is also at the forefront of making sure that all the environmental proposals, environmental improvement proposals, are actually implemented. And we've already done that in Lamu. To be very specific to the issues that you've mentioned, we have already addressed areas of where the mangroves have been cut, particularly at the port. And compensation has been done to Kenya Forest Service to be able to recreate mangrove forest zones in alternative areas. So we are not just destroying, but we are actually providing also opportunity for more recreation of that same environment. We're talking about marine life. We've made sure that where we are building the port, we are not interfering with the most sensitive of that environment. It is a channel that is quite clear and does not interfere with the coral reefs, among many others. When we come to culture and heritage, Lamu Island and Manda Island are not part of the development zone for the LAPSET. We have cordoned all those off, and we've made sure that Lamu Island, which is a World Heritage Site, is actually not touched by any development. And our planning policies, having undertaken a master planning of Lamu Port City, we have made sure that we have ingrained within the what we call the institutional systems that are going to manage and to make sure that we achieve that plan, not to allow for any developments to flow to Lamu Island.
Yes.
So I would like to say that we are a careful government, we are a careful people, and having come of age as a country, over 50 years since independence, our professionals have grown, and the government is, it is in government that where you also find some of the best professionals that deal with matters of environment, among others. So we are caring.
Yeah, part of what this project is supposed to do is help open up the hinterland in places like the northern parts of Uganda, parts of DRC, Congo, well, Sudan itself, Ethiopia, and adjacent nations. Have we put in place mechanisms that will enable the partnerships that we're looking for to be able to, well, yield the fruit that this project is designed for?
Absolutely. We have made sure that we have put in place the requisite institutional structures that is enabling us to drive the agenda beyond the borders.
Yes.
For example, with Ethiopia and South Sudan, we have signed memorandums of understanding, we've signed bilateral agreements, we have signed a number of engagement instruments that enable us to work together in implementing the project.
Yes.
And if you look at what Ethiopia is already doing, we are already working together with them in constructing the highway, and they are also completing 500 kilometers on their side from Moyale to Hawassa. At the same time, we are working together to progress the development of the product oil pipeline that will take refined oil to Ethiopia. With South Sudan, we signed a memorandum of understanding, and we've also worked together on the design of the road on their side.
Yes.
And we are waiting for cessation of hostilities for that contract now to be executed under the World Bank, considering that international projects cannot be executed in a war war zone.
True. Yeah, for places like Uganda, we consistently get the news that the country has decided to go the Tanzanian route, go the southern corridor and things like that. Why do you think we are losing confidence within some of our neighbors? For example, the pipeline from Hoima would be very easy to take through Soroti, the northern parts of Kenya to Lokichar and then on through to Lamu. But we are starting to hear doubts about some of these projects. They say corruption, costs, things like that.
Wakaba, allow me to correct the misconception that has been created that Uganda has run away. From the definition of LAPSET, it is Lamu Port, South Sudan, Ethiopia Transport Corridor. Uganda is not part of the LAPSET corridor because we already have infrastructure connections with Uganda, already, from railway to roads to everything else, even through Lake Victoria waters. So we already have enough infrastructure connecting us to Uganda and Tanzania. So they are not part of the LAPSET corridor. What happened is that Uganda developed an interest upon seeing us pursuing the LAPSET agenda in Ethiopia and South Sudan. Away from that, we have not lost any favor with any of our neighbors regarding the implementation of LAPSET corridor projects. And as such, what we are pursuing under LAPSET is to create new regional economic blocks that have previously been missing in the scene. For example, Ethiopia is 100 million people, Kenya is 45 million people. These two countries share one of the longest borders with the intense population integration issues. But we've never had the opportunity to connect them through landed infrastructure so that we can reap from the benefits of integration. By connecting the two countries, we have created a new regional economic bloc of 145 million people, which was previously not there. With the South Sudan connecting directly will also enable us to support South Sudan in a more stronger way, so that we can also develop together and be able to leverage from each other's strengths. So we haven't lost favor with any of our neighbors with regard to the project. And instead of that, we are actually progressing the cooperation between the countries that are involved in LAPSET.
Okay, indeed, that's quite good to hear. Now, in closing, because we are running out of time, the fact that we have the news, of course, that the Isiolo airport is set for opening quite soon. We are seeing some of these projects beginning to come on stream. What do you expect will be the quick wins that we can start to enjoy very soon, very quickly?
Definitely. This is going to be a big support to the economies of northern Kenya,
yes,
up to including Mount Kenya region. You will recall that, or you do know that a lot of products maybe that are exported through Nairobi airport are actually incurring a lot of costs through transportation, particularly if you are bringing them from Isiolo and Mount Kenya region. So if by having an airport at Isiolo, you've definitely cut down on time, among many other costs that are increasing operational prices for goods that are being exported.
Okay.
So that is going to support the economies of northern Kenya region and the outlying areas. And at the same time, it is going to start to champion the accessibility to northern Kenya, thereby allowing more investors to access northern Kenya.
Yes.
Yes.
Indeed, thank you very much, sir, for taking the time to talk to us. Sylvester Kasuku, CEO and Director General at the LAPSSET Development Corridor Project. Indeed, pointing out, of course, one of the things that we haven't really stressed, the fact that there exists a lot of opportunities for the counties to start competing, well, for some of the businesses that we are talking about now that they have airports and other infrastructure at their disposal. Well, indeed, asante sana.
Thank you very much.
Yes, now moving on from that, now children from the Liki Special School in Laikipia County who